guys, I'm Brittany,
I'm Maria.
and welcome back to the Be More podcast.
We're back
I
after a
did it.
mini
I remembered how
hiatus.
to do it.
I
So,
know.
so sorry to our listeners because we are not people who consistently do our podcasting enough. But it's like the same thing with there are so many things that all of a sudden, technology-wise, require our constant attention.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
I just don't want to give in to that.
You've
You
always
know
been
what I
like that.
mean?
No,
I know
yeah,
I
you
have
always,
always been
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. But like I don't, part of me is like, oh, well, you have to record a new podcast for
You
people
don't
every week.
have to.
And part of me wants to be like, no, I don't
You
want to
don't.
give
You don't
people,
have to.
you know? And I like part of
Yeah.
me, I guess the guilt part of me feels bad that we don't give people new episodes every week. But I mean, in a real and just to like pull back the curtain and kind of like pop anyone's bubble on the magic of podcasts, like most podcasts do like 9 recordings in a week and then don't see each other for forever. But like
Yeah.
when we do it weekly, we like keep you up to date on things and like you get to see us and but
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah. We
life
flip
gets in
it
the way.
around. Yeah, we flip it around in like 2 days after recording. So it's like the most recent news, if you will.
Right. Like, and you're
Yeah.
keeping up with us. And sometimes we can't even keep up with ourselves to be able to do a podcast episode during the week. So we take some time and then we get back to it when we can.
Exactly. And like,
Otherwise,
shit
I,
happens.
yeah, and otherwise I feel like we'd just be giving you really crappy episodes because neither of us would be A, like prepared or B, actively like engaged in what we're doing. So it'd just be a crappy episode. So instead of
Right.
giving you crap, we just make you wait for the good stuff.
Quality over quantity.
Amen.
Even though we have a bunch, so if you haven't listened to all of them, there is
Yeah,
a
go
bunch of
back.
episodes
We have a
anyway.
ton of other episodes for you to listen to.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was just talking to, I don't know if you've caught on to this, but I feel like both of us are, it doesn't really happen with us because we spend enough time like talking to each other that we usually have like very short, like our texts are like this, that, like very
They're to
like
the
to the
point.
point. Yeah. And then
Yeah,
we
yeah,
just move
yeah.
on. But I was talking to I have very few people in my life that I like actually have texting conversations with because I don't
Same.
do that. And I was talking to my friend Sam. She's one of the people that like I constantly will randomly text.
Hmm.
And we were talking and then like we stopped talking. And then like the next day, like carried on the conversation. And she had said the next day, like, sorry, I didn't get back to you. And I was like, please don't apologize. Like, please, just like a blanket statement to anybody who listens to this who knows me, like, please don't apologize if I don't, like, if you don't text me back right away. I don't understand why the world thought, like, let's take these super social beings who only socially function on like the whole concept of like we don't use social permeance. Like we don't, if out of sight, out of mind is the way that we think socially.
Right.
But like we thought, let's put these tiny little blocks in our hands. That means that you always have to be in instant communication. You have to respond immediately to phone calls and text messages, and you should always be doing that all day long. I, I
It
don't
burns you out. You can't physically do that.
unsubscribe,
Unsubscribe.
unsubscribe. So if
Dislike,
you're
thumbs down.
so like if you are anybody who's ever, and I'm always the
Yeah,
first
same.
person, especially when I'm having a day. If I see that I have a text from you and it's more than 3 sentences long, I don't read it and I don't respond to you until days later. And that's just the way that it works. And if it's
That's
something
just
super important,
yeah.
call me. Text me that you're calling me, that you need to talk to me right now, and then I will absolutely answer the phone.
Yes. And so I agree. It was it's like ingrained in our society that it's like instant communication, like instant response, instant whatever. So like this is a new thing for me where I'm like, if I am having a day, which I've been having a day for the past week, I will literally turn off all notifications besides like calls, obviously. And like that just like part of me is still anxious because I'm like still checking to make sure I'm not missing anything, but other part of me is like, no one's texting me. Not that I get a lot of texts to begin with in the during the day, but the
I
few that come through, I'm like, I have it's like out of sight, out of mind.
So this is the bad, one of the many unfortunate parts of living with anxiety.
Oh yeah.
And I've been very
Hmm.
I think I've kind of had a breakthrough in understanding my anxiety as a person because I've been talking about it a lot because I've been experiencing it a lot. And it's been very helpful to be able to break things down. But It's even harder to have the worst thing that you could do as a person with anxiety is have access to constant communication all the time.
It's god fucking awful. Don't do it to yourselves,
Because
people.
then you think, so here's me, right? I've only recently started to put my phone in sleep mode at night because I put my watch in sleep mode at night, and I didn't even
Oh,
realize at
do
first
both.
that it does it to my phone. Like if I do it to my watch, it immediately does it to my phone. I never like it took me a month to realize that. And when I thought that I was just doing it on my watch because I thought that it was just like stopping my watch, the way that my watch
From
functions.
vibrating or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I thought it would just stop my watch from like the lights turning on or anything. Like it just kept my watch dark essentially.
Yeah.
But once I realized that it does it to my phone, I started to get really anxious about like the what if something happens? What if someone needs to get in contact with me? And I like don't part of that is because that's happened before because I used to turn my phone off completely.
Yeah. We've had this
And
conversation.
because I can't,
Yeah.
because I can't give myself the option because then this starts to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I started to realize like how to change settings so that only like certain people can get
Yeah,
contact
I
if
do
it's in
that
sleep
too.
mode.
Yeah, I do that too.
But the amount of anxiety that comes from my phone is on, so like people should be able to contact me, but I'm putting it on sleep mode so they can't, is a whole lot of a million feelings that usually end with like guilt and shame about doing that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And I have to rationalize, and thank God we have history because I rationalize it with, well, what did people used to do before we had cell phones?
Yeah, exactly. Like
Right? Like, what did
call
people used to
like
do?
with a landline or like drive over or like
Right. Or
contact someone
like,
else.
right. Or just like deal with it yourself. And
That too. True. You're right.
I I need to do more of that, establishing that as like the first rule of thumb in my life anyway. But it it really is like the modern marvel of having access to other people only on our own convenient terms. So
It's
I don't understand.
it gets so toxic because people expect instant message like we also grew up with instant messenger. Like that's also a
Yes.
thing that
But
we
I also feel like the difference with that and texting is like we knew what I am meant, and we knew that if somebody put
BRB.
like right, if somebody, but also like you could have like an active status that says if you were available or not.
Yeah, but through text you can't.
And like you knew like that person's
Yeah.
not actually here, that person's online. With texting, it's just assumed that you're online all the time, unless you use like WhatsApp, right? And you can like put your
Yes.
statuses away. But I doubt people
Yeah.
actually check that before they send
No.
messages to you. But
Absolutely not.
texting is just a faster version of email. So people just assume that you're looking at your phone, that you're on your phone, that
Even
you're
email people
not living your
respond
life.
instantly, you know? Like they expect it, or not they expect, but they also have that feeling of like, oh, I got an email, I have to answer it now. And I'm like, no, I don't have to. And that's also a thing professionally where I'm like, I can close out of my email if I need to focus on something. My email, like
Yeah.
if something has to blow up, someone's gonna call me, like, and be like,
That
check your email.
I'm really trying to slow myself down more to I have a colleague who always says like if someone's not dying, it's not an emergency and it doesn't need your attention. And I'm trying.
100%.
So yeah, I just
It's
think
it's
it's
hard to slow
okay.
down. Yeah,
It's
it is.
okay if you want to unsubscribe to the like instant texting thing.
And going back
That's
to like you know, Sam apologizing or you apologize, whoever apologized, like about like delaying their response. Like it's not, you don't have to apologize. Like no one had like sometimes I get those because the main person that I text is Ashley, obviously.
right. Yeah.
We've gotten into the habit, and I guess this is just communication with people that you frequently text or communicate with, is little more communication, is like I tell her, I'm like, my phone is on silent or like on do not disturb when I'm sleeping. So, and she wakes up earlier than me. So sometimes she's like, I'm so sorry if this wakes you up. I'm like, no, because I literally don't get notifications.
Oh.
So now she's like free to text me at
Yeah,
like
just
6
whenever.
o'clock,
Like
which is
whenever
great.
I feel like it, answer me back whenever. And it's just so freeing.
It is because then I'm like, and then it's like my phone is on do not disturb again during working hours. So like from like 10 to 7. So it's like I don't get notifications. So like people are free to text me, but calls will come through. So I'm just like, well, I need to focus.
And
And
that's
that,
genius. I really have to
yes,
start doing that
it's so hard
when
though,
I'm
dude.
working.
It's so hard because I, again, as an anxious person, a highly like functional anxious person, I'm like checking my phone anyway.
And you want to know what? Our phones are, and I'm only,
Intrusive?
well, no. Well, yes, but guys, this is not what we planned on talking about today. We
No,
promise we will
but
get there,
well,
but it actually kind of fits in. Um,
yeah.
our phones are so much smarter than us. Like this is because in terms of being in contact with technology, I think I'm whatever's worse than a boomer because I'm definitely not a millennial. I only just learned not too long ago that my phone like updated and has all of these modes on it now. So like
Yeah, those
aside from
modes are
just sleep
really,
modes, you know
yeah,
what I
they're really
just thought
helpful.
of?
Yeah.
I just thought of
Your
so
work
I was
one?
thinking about no, I was thinking about what right. I was thinking about what you just said, right?
Yeah,
So
dude.
I can my what you just said about putting your phone on silent for when you're working. I was thinking to myself like I should do that, but a lot of the times this is this is going to be the super annoying for anybody else, but for me I got to get through it, and maybe it'll help some other lone like
Yeah.
lone technology not savvy person. If I set it up for my work hours and I only put the people that I work with who I need to communicate with, because we communicate via text if we need stuff during the day,
Correct. Yeah.
then I don't have to worry about life being annoying.
Yes, dude. And I literally just
Why
have it
don't I
set up
do
where
that?
it's
I'm
like,
going to do that right now.
do it right now because it's really like I literally just have my parents, my sisters, and Ashley on like if they need to call or text me, it will come through. And like
Right, that's what I have for sleep mode.
which is and like the text app that we use isn't like the messenger app. We actually have like a separate app. So I don't even feed like if it's really important, like they know like that's like I'm on do not disturb and they can call me. Otherwise I get like no text, which is
You're a
fucking great.
genius.
So
Everyone needs to do this for every part. And the creepier thing that I won't do because I don't trust technology that much, if you're somebody who has an iPhone and you can do it, or you're somebody who leaves your location on all the time, which is something I refuse to do, even though I know they're getting it anyway, but I refuse to give into that part, you can literally set any of the modes to be based on your location. And it just does it
I don't like
automatically.
that. That I don't
That's
like.
wild to
I don't
me.
like
I'm
that
not going to
because
do that. I'm going to do it
no,
on
no, no, no.
time.
No, I
But
do it by based on time and
because then
date
after
or
a
like day.
while, they're
No,
gonna
thank
like
you.
catch the patterns of the places that you go, and then you're gonna start seeing
Well, they
like
catch it
advertisements
already.
for things
Yeah,
that
no,
are
they catch
related
it.
to. I don't like that idea at all.
Well, they
Um,
catch it already because when I plug in my phone for GPS or whatever, they're like, "Oh, are you going here?" Because it's like patterned of like every Tuesday night I go to XY, or like every Monday. I'm like,
so gross.
that's gross. But
Oh
no,
man.
I thought you were gonna say like location as like people have your location just in case something happens because I have that
Oh, like you can
with my
send it out the
sisters.
pin or whatever.
Not even because iPhone, I don't know, Android I'm sure does this, but iPhone is like has that Find My app, which is basically like you have your friends or family's locations. And sometimes I send it to people. Like I sent it to like friends where I'm like, I'm going on a date with this guy. If I fucking go missing, here's my location. They'll just have it. So
That's a
it's
good idea
like,
too.
so I have that. That's also like just a precaution because like people are crazy. So like maybe have someone have your location. That's an advice that I have.
So perfect segue moment.
Okay.
This is our little, this is our
That's the segue.
this is our, no, I'm gonna make a segue, but
Oh,
that was our little like how to technology segment of dealing with people who, from real words from people who deal with mental health about technology. But
or
my
if you don't,
segue,
I was
go
like,
ahead.
or if you don't want to send someone your location, I have sent people my calendar, which has my what I'm doing every day. If you don't
I
want the specific, you know what I'm saying?
think that I would cause someone else to suffer from a brain aneurysm if
You
they had
sent
to
them.
look at and decipher my schedule.
I gave Ashley my calendar. I was like, I live alone. Y'all don't know what will happen to me if I'm like,
That's a great idea, though.
I'm like,
Um,
so another advice. So
so now Maria wouldn't have to worry. You ready for this? Maria would not have to worry about scary dates or people around her or sending her location to people that care about her if the world was filled with more good people.
That's a great segue.
So
Great segue.
that's what we want to talk about today is being a good person. So I was having a very extensive conversation with Sam about how insanely frustrating it is to be a good person. And for so many reasons. So that's what we wanted to talk about more today. But before we start, tell me how, like, give me some of your like descriptive words or experiences around being a good person or good people.
Um, Calling back to just this conversation we just had, good people are or have stereotypically been the people that are like always available. Have you noticed that? Where it's like, oh, you're always there for me, like all this stuff, like no matter what. I'm like,
Don't look at me.
I mean, I've reverted to like time and place now. But like, when you're younger, you're like, oh, you're always there for me. Like you're such a good person. Like you're always whatever. Or like people just that are just like helpful and like will literally at a drop of hat just like go
You
help you
just
out and
like
stuff.
triggered me in so many
Oh,
ways.
because as soon as you're like, let's talk about good people and what that means, and I'm like, this is because this is triggering.
So triggered. I think probably part of why I'm so triggered about it is because I've been struggling with a lot of
Being the giver always.
that in a lot of ways this is over the last month or so, most of my life, but extensively over the last month, with more awareness anyway. And
Hmm.
one of my very good friends, we just had like a 3-hour conversation during my break.
Mm.
And I was telling them about the shitstorm of my life right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And they made me laugh because I was like, I don't know what. I was literally just talking to our friend. If you guys don't remember our friend Monica, shout out to Monica. I was just talking to Monica about this too, because I feel like a lot of people can, including Monica, can probably relate to this. I had said to Ren, I don't know what paperwork I signed in blood as a child that I didn't realize I was signing off on that
Yeah.
allowed other people to drop so much of their crap at my feet, but I would like to like unsign that document now.
Give me an amendment
And
where I can sign and be like, I'm done. Our
and
contract has ended.
and Ren's response, because I was like, I don't understand why. I don't understand why.
Of course,
And
yeah, yeah.
Ren's response to me was, well, you're an extremely understanding and open person. Who else is it
That's
going to go
why.
to? And I went,
Fuck. Literally,
fuck.
fuck. Fuck.
I'm dealing with that right now. So,
No, I get that too. Because that's what
and
I've dealt with for like ever. And I'm like,
right, which
why
is
did
why
I
we're
put myself in
friends,
this
dude. That's
position?
why we're friends. I've started to learn that a lot of the people that I have still in my circle
Mhm.
are people who do that, and one of the things that Ren and I spoke about too is that's one of the reasons why we've had, like, they've lived all over the place, and one of the reasons why we've always had a friendship is because we do that for each other,
Yeah, it's a
right?
mutual give and take. It's not like you're just
Yeah,
giving
like it's an
because people
actual
expect it of you.
relationship, right?
Yeah, that you're working
So
on.
so let's go back to this definition before I start to cry. So the definition of a good person
Because I
is,
can't believe there's a definition, number one.
yeah, I don't know if this is like the
It's like a definition online.
there's a couple different variations, but I really like the way that you define a good person. First, like, the standard is by saying they're a human being, but there are other like words, descriptive words, that are characteristics that you would equate to someone who you consider to be a good person. And I like this one from Gimlish that says they're kind, honest, moral, and virtuous. And then I see
Okay, yeah.
others of like other qualities. Um, they have integrity. They have self-awareness. I can take a lot of people off that list just based on that. They're patient. They're emotionally intelligent. That one's interesting to me. Can take a lot of people off for that. They have compassion. They're loyal.
Yeah, you tack on all these like good characteristics and you're like, yeah, I can knock off people
Like,
just
that's a
based on one or
good
two.
person.
Yeah.
But here's what it's lacking. And here's the thing that again, coming back to the thing that I struggle with. So much of the time when you carry all of these other qualities, you lack the ability to build boundaries.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And then because people see you, and this is what Sam and I were starting to talk about, because people see you as a good person, they expect that in every situation, you're going to stay that good person who's kind and like moral and virtuous and like who's gentle and not aggressive because that's you being a good person. And
Hmm.
the frustration of the fact that that's not, you don't slide into different situations in life and just always stay that way, right? Like otherwise you
Oh,
get
yeah.
completely depleted.
Hmm.
Like people will manipulate you and take advantage of you being a good person. And I listened to a like a little docu-series thing of an interview with a family psychologist or a child psychiatrist, one of them, maybe two, maybe both of them. And the
Sure. Yeah,
child
yeah.
psychiatrist said that their best definition of a good parent is someone who is kind yet
Hmm.
firm.
So with boundaries.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that if I were to, and then I want to hear your thoughts, if I were to like adjust the definition of this one that said all of this stuff about
All the characteristics and stuff.
kind, honest, moral, and virtuous, I think a good human being is kind to themselves first, and then kind to others. Who is honest with themselves first and is also kind to others, and
Hmm.
is firm
Hmm.
in acting on and supporting their morals and virtues. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does, because that the definition to begin with doesn't include what you do to yourself. It just seems like it's like like a third, like a second party
Right.
is
I'm
involved. So it's like what
kind
you're
to
doing to other
others.
people. Yeah.
Right.
But
Eh,
most of the time, kind, good people that you know aren't good to themselves because they are
right.
good to you instead, which is the unfortunate part, which is what we're both like
It's wait,
triggered
you're you
by.
wearing the irony of you wearing your hat right now is just so
No,
funny.
I forgot that we were that like this, or like not
Maria's wearing a
forgot,
hat that
but
says be kind. Um,
also Brittany made me which is good. The lighting is different because my my depression light is on. So that's her being kind
for
to
the
me
win.
because I was not being a kind person myself, if you want to tie this all back.
The most infuriating thing is once you get put into, and this is more of what Sam and I were talking about, once you get put into the box of being a like a good person, if someone lays their crap at you or like does anything not good towards you, if you don't respond in the stereotypical way that a good person would,
Like
it's like,
coddling that person.
oh my
Yeah.
God, oh my God, oh my God, like, why are you being so mean? Oh my gosh, you're rude. I can't tell you how many times, and there's a difference, right? And I've learned like between like the being aggressive about it and just being like, no,
Straightforward, like this is I'm
right,
being kind by telling you the truth.
right.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a difference between those two things, but the frustrating aspect of dealing with the response of other people because you're actually being a good person to yourself over being a good person to them all the time.
It's so jarring for them because it's like you're just there to take their shit, and like they leave like lighter while you're like dealing with, okay, what the fuck do I do with this information? And then when you reverse it, they're just like, why are you like it's like so jarring. But then it's like you have to do that for yourself because if not, they're gonna walk all over you.
And like they could be like the world, right? It's not even the,
Hmm. Not
and
even like a specific person,
it's
but yeah, the world.
so hard to undo that. And that's
It's
one of the
also
things that I'm struggling with in life right now. It's so hard to be an empathetic person who,
mhm.
or the people that I care about in life,
It's harder
try
when
to
it is.
be that good person for them.
Yeah, it's harder when you're closer to the person. It's harder.
Yeah.
It's
And
like
then
truly just like the hardest thing because it's like they've
having to
known.
navigate that when you're like,
Forget it.
okay, this isn't working anymore.
Hmm.
It's almost like a crime to yourself But the problem is that no one teaches you early enough about what the difference is. And I feel like on top of that, being a female makes it 10 times more difficult.
Yeah, because we're supposed to be the nurturing, caring,
Right.
whatever type.
And the fact that an absolute stranger, I don't know you at all, I'm just going to be a good person to you
In that moment.
because that feels right, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like if someone's in help, whatever. But the people who I actually know and I kind of get to know, I've started this instead of just giving people the benefit of the doubt, I've kind of started having like you need to earn me being a good person to you. You know what I mean? Like aside from like the basic
Yeah, just being polite and like all this
kind,
stuff.
like
Like,
all
yeah,
all those like,
yeah.
but I've started to be like, if you really want my time and attention, like you
Mm-hmm.
need to earn my time and like you need to earn that good stuff.
Yeah, because it doesn't I think we put ourselves in circles that like understand that, thankfully, like in terms of friends.
Yeah. Now,
Um Now, yeah, it's true.
now.
True now. Because they get it, right? Like, and also it's like I was just talking to my sister yesterday about this, Erin. I was just talking to her how like it's difficult for because she's 25 now, if that baffles your brain.
What?
But she's really like we were just talking about how like it's difficult to keep up with people when you're older. Like it's not like school anymore where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, all my friends, whatever. And it's harder to keep those relationships because now that we're older and we hopefully know a bit more about life and like just people and relationships in general, that like you kind of have to put yourself in circles that you align with. And like for me, right, like it's so much easier now that I again therapy also helps people that like, you put your boundaries up and they reciprocate by saying, "Oh, Maria's not being a bitch. She just like is taking care of herself finally." But for the people that don't understand that, it's so much more difficult and it's like so jarring again for them because it's like, "Why
This
are you being a bitch? I'm going to come back to you when you're not being a bitch." And I'm like, "No, this is just you have to earn my time and respect now because I have limited time."
this is exactly where I remember being a teenager and I remember
God, how do we
struggling.
survive?
I don't know. I remember I understood this without understanding it, if that makes sense. Like I acted on it without really knowing what I was acting on, which is why things got messy. But
Yeah.
I remember being called a bitch was probably the second B word that I heard the most when people would talk to me, right? Like if they weren't calling me Brittany, they were calling me a bitch.
Which
And
unfortunately was the truth. Like not the truth that you're a
yeah.
bitch, but like also like me being your friend at the time, I was like,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah. I
like
am
that's
fully
fucking
aware of that.
annoying. Yeah.
But it what you just said about it is why, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah, of
because
course.
I didn't take anybody's shit and I didn't make any space for anybody's shit because at that point I was already so I had
Jaded.
no idea that I was taking on all of that crap and I was just so yeah, jaded by the fact that I was always dealing with things and not taking care of myself, not knowing what it meant to take care of myself. So I was just like dealing with all of that frustration. And when I didn't want to deal with somebody's shit, like I was the first to tell them, like, fuck off. Like, I don't want to deal with you. Don't look at me. I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
And, but I 100% still aggressively, yes. But with the tools that I had, I still stand by like what you said about being called a bitch because you're protecting yourself, or
Hmm.
most of the times because it was protecting other people. I stand by the fact that I was a bitch. And
Yeah.
I still kind of stand by. Is it annoying? Because now that I understand, like, you calling me a bitch means that you have absolutely no respect for the fact that I'm trying to protect myself, right? Like, I'm
Hmm.
being defensive because I'm trying to protect myself.
Yeah.
So, like, when people use that language now, it's just even more disrespectful, which is frustrating and
Yeah.
annoying because you partially would expect people to have more emotional awareness to like I'm obviously making decisions now and being more stern for a specific reason,
Hmm.
not in an aggressive way. But it's frustrating because that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen to men. And B, it's like a simple tic-tac throw at just to try to write off the fact that this is a person that has feelings, right? Or is actually trying to
Distance
boundary for
themselves.
themselves,
Yeah.
right? Like is trying not to deal, like this is a person who doesn't want to deal with my shit, so they suck. Like that's
Which is not the
what it
automatic, it
is.
shouldn't be the automatic response, but it is. Because everyone's so like within themselves, like it's an individual like mindset where it's like, if you're not helping me, why the fuck am I even going to you type
Yeah.
situation. And like,
Yeah.
so so again, I have another podcast with Ashley, and like while we were on hiatus, there was I have to send you this podcast from NPR, the Code Switch podcast they have.
Mm.
Um, and this week or this month, I don't know how many, I guess a couple weeks ago now, they had a Filipino psychology concept called this will tie in, I think. It's called in Tagalog utang na loob.
Did we
In
talk about this?
translation,
I feel like recently. I feel like we might have.
we might have like off
Go
the
ahead, but
cuff,
it's
but
okay
like
because it
not like
sounds
officially
familiar.
on here. Yeah,
Go for
probably.
it.
Or I've talked to you about it, like just like throughout whatever. But
Possible.
utang is debt, and whether it's
Oh, this is the thing that like, we were talking about with your parents, like what we were talking about with our parents, but we didn't
yes.
talk about it on here. Okay, yeah, talk about it.
So utang is debt, which is or which could be monetary or emotional, just any type of debt. Now loob means inside, but in this context, it's like the debt of your inner self. So in English, it's like very harsh. So
Burn.
yeah, so this podcast, I obviously listened to it. The example, there's a woman and her parents. Her parents divorced way back when she was younger, and like they had a house in America. The dad went back to the Philippines. They were supposed to sell the house, but they didn't, which is fine, whatever. But if they did sell the house, like the dad would get half. That was the agreement. So, haven't sold the house. The dad hasn't contacted his daughter. Daughter gets a call from in the Philippines saying like, I need that money for my half of the portion of the house. Give it to me. And they don't have it, obviously, because they still have the house. But instead of fighting and like, fighting it and being like, no, here's that, she just gave it to him because he shamed her into that was her utang to him, her debt to him, because she was a Filipino American, and without him going to America with her mom, she wouldn't be here. And so obviously not a
I
good
remember
person.
you telling me this story, but that's the kind of shit, right? That's exactly it, right? How dare you manipulate someone's emotional
Right.
attachment to you
And
to
attach it
get what
to
you want from,
psychology.
like,
But then
fuck
but then
all the
being
way off.
being Filipino, right? Like we are of a collective mindset, right? So I'm trying to tie this back because it's like it seems like a one-off story. There's a collective mindset in the Philippines where it's like you aren't a self-made anything. You're here because of your community, your tribe,
So it's
or
the
whatever you.
opposite of the nationalism of America. Got it.
Yes. So in America, right? So this is why like being like someone of a different culture, especially in like an Eastern one where it's like very community based, when people get very like defensive as to why we're setting boundaries, it just seems natural to me to like be like, well, it was natural to me when I was a kid to be the collective, so then obviously take care of everyone
Yeah.
and it's like over myself. But then when I flip it, and obviously I'm Filipino, so when I deal with my Filipino, counterparts, it's the complete opposite because then I'm taking the American stance of like, let me take care of myself first,
Mm.
which is that like so like even within like race and culture, like it's hard because it's like your one side is telling you one thing and your other side is telling you like, no, you should probably take care of yourself.
I also wonder too how much like the balance matters, right? Like it's one thing to be somebody who taps into the collective when everybody else in the collective has the same mindset of doing that, right?
Yeah,
But
time and place.
it's another thing to encourage that mindset, but the people above you take advantage of it to get what they
That's
want.
when it gets toxic as hell.
And
Because
that's literally the definition of being in anything that's toxic. And we
Mhm,
see those trends in cultures, we see those trends in religions, we see
mhm.
those trends, you see those trends in like social settings, like you see those trends everywhere. And that's the thing that I'm fed up with. And that's the thing that the only reason,
Mhm.
I don't care how many days you use the B word to describe me, I would stand by that because I am not the type of person who would ever try to manipulate somebody to get what I wanted from them. So if
No.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean, like
Uh-huh.
that
Yeah.
that's a bitch to me. Like you're a dick. Like you're the worst type of person alive. So it's so the lack of emotional understanding that we
Mhm.
just have as human beings. It's ironic, and I feel like people don't want to, especially in our country or just anywhere. I feel like people don't want to call out the fact that like they're actively hypocrites in
Yeah.
the way that they manipulate people. Like I don't
There's
humans have gotten so good at doing that,
yeah, that
but
they don't
we're
even know they're
not
doing it though, you
right,
know?
and we're not
Yeah.
we're not
Here
like
here's like the
boundarying that, like what we're like
yeah.
literally like an entire
Not even
industry, like the marketing industry is built on the manipulate is
the marketing industry.
fine-tuning,
Call out all the marketing
manipulating.
people.
But
Yeah.
it's true, right? Like it's
Yeah, yeah.
not we say that it's a beneficial thing and like we deem it as a whole industry that people get paid to do, but marketing is literally about manipulating you to do
To
something.
buy something or do something. Yeah,
Like
100%.
it just
Yeah. Yeah.
is.
So, um, now just now I'm just bringing Filipino psychology.
Love.
There's I think from my understanding again, like if any full-fledged Filipino can I've talked about this on my other podcast while we were doing a hiatus here. Like if you want to educate me more on the Filipino psychology, I'm not opposed to being called out because there was actually something on TikTok this past 2 weeks where this girl who's a Filipino American, she's in the process of like going back to her roots and figuring out her culture because she never grew up like with that knowledge. And again, I support that fully, but
She's
she gave
weaponizing it now.
misinformation.
Oh, okay.
She's giving the misinformation and saying like things that like certain words mean this, but being Filipino and knowing the culture more than her, I'm just like you're that's not right. Like you're just saying things because you it's like the analogy I
But
gave for
why?
Ashley was like it would be if I just all of a sudden started talking about fucking science because I'm in the process of learning. I don't know it yet. I'm just in the process
But
of
that's what
learning.
I'm saying, right? That's another manipulation.
That's another manipulation. Yeah.
It's one thing for you to say, right? Like what I hear is you just said she's claiming that she's doing it for herself, but she's doing
But
it
then is
on TikTok to get
yes, yeah, yeah.
followers and likes.
And
And
just like, oh, this is what I learned, but like, okay, like it's not right, and we're just calling you out
um,
because it's not right. I don't. I'm like on one right now because like this light
why
is on.
can't we just do things without having to
Oh, that's a whole different.
post it on the internet? Like
Yeah, that's a. Just write it in your journal. Get a diary.
I am a really big believer in
Setting boundaries.
well no well I'm a really big believer in shared knowledge. I think
I
that's super
100% agree.
important.
A
And I
hundred
think
percent.
that the more that people tell their truth and talk about their experiences, the better off we will all be at being able to actually accept other people, right?
If
But
it's correct information.
but that's the difference. It's one thing to tell the story from the this is my experience with it. It's another thing to tell the story of this is the fact of
Preaching.
life,
Of
right?
preaching. Yeah, it's two
And
different things.
I mean, we, like, listener, hopefully you know that I'm pretty sure that Maria and I have been very open and honest about the
There's a
fact that every time we
disclaimer on
talk,
everything that we do,
yeah, like
like
these
in
are
the
our
description.
experiences. Even when we tell you we're reading definitions, like we are
Like
not,
here's a source. Like you
we
can Google
don't
it.
claim to know, we
No,
don't know. We just know
no.
us and we know what we've gone through. And
Yeah.
that there's the fine line of distinction between those two things, and that people just being transparent about those
Mhm.
two different things just I don't know if it ever actually was an established difference, but it's just so damn blurry these days.
Yeah. That's why we are in the situation we're in this
But
country.
this is why like education exists. This is why
Yeah.
science is a thing. Like this
Yeah.
is we have these sources that are,
Are factual.
quality information, right?
Factual. Yeah, yeah.
And this is why I'm afraid when our like the upcoming generations are learning things from
TikTok.
TikTok and these directly marketed messages towards them. And then we wonder why everyone's on edge and
Constantly.
responds to each other the way that they do. And
Yeah.
when we live in this like instant gratification of communication, when we live in this Alexa,
Yeah.
Siri, oh, I'm not
You're
talking to
gonna
you. Um,
Yeah, see, you're gonna trigger
this
one.
this like yeah. This like upcoming AI world where everything's instant in communication, in this superficial connection, it's going to become that much more difficult if, as that tower is building, we're not also building the tower of actually taking boundaries into account and how do we communicate well and how do we deal with other humans and what other
Just
humans need.
critically think.
If we're
Like,
not, yeah, if we're not building those two things together, the desire for the instant gratification and for everything to be comfortable and meeting your own needs is going to go higher. And the ability, like if people are responding badly now to me trying to set boundaries, like
forget
it's
it.
going to be impossible to do that in the future because everybody's going to take everything so personally.
And I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, not everything's personal. I also don't know why. What was I talking about?
I'm lost. Well, you
What
were
I
just
was
talking about the dealing with the having to the debt that you have to give to people.
Yes, but then there was another Filipino psychology thing that I was going to bring up, but I can't remember what it
No,
was in
you like
relation to what
started
you're saying.
you started
Yeah,
talking about it and then never, I don't think you got to it.
I didn't get to it because what happened was I remember that TikTok, which should have bled
Yeah.
into like me
Well,
defining
so
what the
what
next
was it?
psychology. So there's oh, you know why I got into a thing? Because Filipinos are going after this Filipino American,
Okay,
and
they're
like
going after her
you
for
can
being wrong in the definition.
and everyone can and anyone again like this is a free fucking forum in our comments, like you feel free to like correct me because I'm here to learn, just like be civil about it. I don't care like if you call me stupid, but there's a concept I think that's like the cornerstone of like Filipino psychology, which is kapwa, and that translates to your fellow person or community again. um and like that is the basis of like many cultures outside of America. I think I was just trying to relate this back to being American, and it's still the collective, right? It's like you look out for the people that were within your community, and then that then bleeds into like you not knowing boundaries again, and then all this stuff. So it's like if you talk to any like I'm just putting Filipinos out there, like that's why everyone so like can manipulate that, because if you're not within if you're not helping out your kapwa, your fellow person, it's like what the hell are you doing?
But the
Like,
definition that's missing from all of this is to be genuine about it.
mm-hmm.
Because,
Which I am sure like in the beginning that's what it is, but
right,
then the
like
manipulation, being colonized, all that stuff.
this is where we're too, it takes a level of intelligence to understand how manipulation works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it doesn't take like it's like a really bad game of like Mario because you can get to like in a the way that this would make sense is if you have to get really really emotionally intelligent to be able to understand how to use manipulation, right? Like you should
Yeah,
have to
100%.
understand all of the other things that suck about being emotionally intelligent and aware to
Mm-hmm.
be able to access like you have manipulation as a tool now to fight
Right,
bad
right,
guys.
right, yeah, yeah.
But that's not the way it happens. You start learning how to manipulate because your ego starts understanding how do I get all of those good endorphins about getting what I want really young. And in the world that we live in now, there are so many influences that support the development of the manipulative tool
Mm-hmm.
emotionally. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
instead of like I climbed the mountain and now I access manipulation to protect myself, right? And like I know how to manipulate my way around things as needed. It's like, oh, I'm at the bottom of the mountain and the first tool I learn how to use is I'm going to change the entire pathway up the mountain, manipulate it to make me comfortable and happy. And that part is a flaw
It's
in
also
our
generate,
intelligent design.
and it's also like it then becomes generational, like
Right.
within your DNA at that point, because it's like if this is how I learned because my parents or grandparents did this, and I'm gonna just assume that's the way to live,
And
and that's not a good person.
right. And
Even though they think
we,
they're good, even though they think that they're doing good. That's the thing. Yeah.
and hence so much of the struggle that I experienced with
I
the
feel like
people
yeah,
in
a
my
lot
life
of
at that
good
time.
people, yeah, a lot of good people will notice that the fake good people are doing this and that's the struggle. It's like,
And that's the, I was talking to another really good friend, one of my friends, about what it's like. So there, I started going through this journey of understanding all of this when I think when we were like 16, 17,
makes
where I
sense.
started to look at the people around me
Yeah,
and
do an
go,
inventory.
right, and
Yeah,
go,
do it
what
literally.
is really happening here, right? And learning about the fact that one of the generational traumas that have been going on is related to this.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
it
Yeah.
created so much issue for me because I was like, I don't wanna. And I'm like angry. Like that's why I was like so angry and aggressive about a lot of things is because I was dealing with so much of that and didn't understand why and didn't want to do it. And I had a really good friend of mine within the last year who it's hard enough to go through that when you're younger, but to continue through your life and be an adult and then
Yeah.
start to see it and to have all of that extra time of having to struggle through it, it's extremely painful and extremely, and I mean, I started dealing with it then and I'm still fucking dealing with it now because
Yeah.
I can only change myself. I can't change those people. But
Exactly. Yeah.
it's extremely difficult
When you're
to
older.
just period. It's
Mm.
extremely difficult to have and want to possess and develop all of those characteristics of a good person and have that be like your goal in self-development to want to live that way.
Hmm.
And then to not only live in a world that doesn't understand that or has manipulated the crap out of it, but to live in like an inner circle of where you came from, still having
It's
that.
yes, and uh I think we both subconsciously have done inventories of the people that we're around
Yeah.
as we
That's why our
grow
friend
up.
lists are so much low, shorter than they used
Yeah,
to be. Like, hello.
exactly. Like but we subconsciously or like unconsciously know that that's what we're doing. Is that
Yeah.
it's like if you're not growing with me and you're still stuck being what we were at 18, I can't help you anymore.
And
Right?
that's the hardest part, right?
That's
That's
definitely
the
the most, that's the hardest
hardest
part
part.
about any relationship.
Yeah, period. Especially
Yeah.
ones that
Ones that like you think matter the most or
and
like
well, ones that you get told matter the most, right?
yes, yeah.
We talk so much about family and the importance of family and like blood is thicker than water and all those like, all
That's
those things
so
that
like
people
old
say.
school. Yeah.
Um, and I truly understand that. I because and I think like that matters so much because those are the people who raise you, right? Like that's your
100%. Yeah.
experience with people from a young age. Like that's your first experience and that does really matter. But again, it's a manipulative way to make people do what you want and forcing people to have relationships
100%. 100%. That they don't want.
that maybe aren't, maybe not even that they don't want, but maybe that are a detriment to them.
A 1000%.
And it's, again, I think back to the traditions of human existence of like how important family has always been and like the roles that people would take in families, right? But it's the irony of our society now is that we talk about how like the roles in families are being broken constantly, right? Like we change
Hmm.
all of those stereotypes about what it means to be a mom or what it means to be a dad, what it means
Yeah.
to be a
Or
son
like
and
your
daughter.
chosen family. Yeah.
what it means to be within those roles. We talk about how we're changing all of that, but then we're not truly changing or allowing space to change the role of the family itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that you don't have to be that family. You don't have to be that, like, if why are we still meeting like the 1950s family ideal when all of those parts of the puzzle, like we're still trying to make that puzzle, but we've changed every single
We've
piece
changed
in the puzzle
everything.
to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And I know culture, I know religion, I know so many other aspects play into that. And it's something that on a personal level, it's because it's been so well programmed into me. I think it's probably the biggest thing that I struggle with,
Oh, yeah,
probably now more than
for
ever,
sure.
on a
Yeah.
daily basis.
It's the dismantling of like what you think a family is. Yeah, and that's like,
Yeah. And
and
when you think about all of the different things that have influenced what we're supposed to think about, like it's
yeah, yeah.
bullshit. It really is bullshit.
Yeah, and this is like I'm like getting a little bit triggered because it's so like
Dude, so
I mean, I
triggered.
know you are. I'm getting triggered because it's like what media has told us and like what religion and everything from every like children's fucking book that you read when you're 2 to like all the movies that you watch that are out now. Right? It's like this is the still the core of what a family is and I'm just like, but
And you know what the
why?
saddest part of it is too,
Sure.
is that it leads to when you're constantly battling that, and every individual in your family is battling that, and then you feel like you have to show up in a certain way to be like, to like earn the title of somebody else calling you guys a family, you set up this like facade of performance that becomes even more manipulative and confusing for
Yeah.
those who are involved, who are paying attention to what's going on. I'm
Yeah.
not projecting my life at all in this,
In this moment.
but it confuses things more and becomes more of a harmful thing because everyone is trying to make it seem like you meet that mold, and then you become ashamed of having to show the truth. And
Oh yeah, 100%.
that that for someone like me who's done a lot of this, um so, and I'm open with sharing my story about this now. A, because I've lived it and I've seen that talking about it is really helpful for me. And B,
Everyone's
because I,
different. Yeah.
yeah, and B, because I know that I'm not the only person who's experiencing it. This is just like the way that I'm experiencing it is different. And I hope that like the more I talk about it, it makes other people kind of
Yeah,
think
of
that it's
course.
okay to talk about it too.
Yeah.
Um, you constantly struggle with all of these expectations versus reality. And I had
Hmm.
when I was speaking to Ren, so Ren's always been very open about the dysfunction within their family. And I mean, they wrote a book about it, literally.
Yeah.
And our friendship was always like my family would kind of be a sanctuary for them. And they, after talking about all of the like things that have been going on, they made a comment to me like, it's so funny because I remember when we were kids, like I always thought like your family was like, that's what a family is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was just like, I know, like that, and that's the problem. Like that's one of the problems, right? Is like we were
Oh,
so
yeah,
good at
for
that.
sure. Oh, yeah. My
And
family too. We're
I,
so good at that.
as a individual, got so good at that, that perform like I mean, it didn't also help that I was in the performing arts, but that performative aspect
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I didn't realize, and not helping with the fact that I was doing and just like distracting myself by dealing with other people's problems and trying to help other
Of
people as
course.
much
Yeah.
as I
It's an
was
escapism at that
going
point.
back, yeah, going back to the like I need to be a good person because like I can't figure out what's going on with my own shit. um
Hmm.
Doing that, I didn't see how damning that was for me because I would isolate my life and what was going on in my actual experiences from everyone else. I think you
Hmm.
were one of the only few people that really got to see like a lot of the shit that I would deal with in my household or like within my family because you were right there. So like when I
I
was
was like,
frustrated, I would just easily
I
escape to your house and
physically
just
across the
blah,
street, guys.
all the
Yeah.
stuff out. But I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
realize until I started actually going to therapy that I like don't
You know how to deal with it?
I couldn't talk to people about it because I was programmed that like you need to be performative. Like you can't don't let other people don't burden somebody else with your issues. Don't let them see the cracks in your porcelain like that I couldn't
Oh,
do that.
100%. Yeah. I still struggle with
And
that. Yeah.
it's so bad for you.
It really is. And also I'm also not opposed to telling my story on this, obviously. We have so many episodes, but like that's a similar vein. I feel like with my family, like everyone just knows, like the people that know my parents know how like how great of a people they are as individuals and like as a friend and as like people that like you can go to and like as a family, then that just translates to like, oh, you have great family. Like great. Like
Yeah.
me and my sister's very nice, obviously, to anyone that steps foot into our household. Like we were, we were parented well.
And
Like
your
I'm not gonna
family was
lie.
like the ideal of
Hmm.
where everyone would want to gather, right? Like
Yeah, like we had big
that was the
parties
thing.
again.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, they're having a party across the street. Everyone's fucking invited. Like no one, like So
Yeah.
when my family fell apart, they were like, how is that even possible?
And that's the other, sorry, keep going.
No, it's okay. And that, and like even to this day, sometimes, even though my parents still have rough patches as friends, like obviously, like with any relationship, like even with best friends, like you still have rough patches. But even then, like I knew like there were years where they fucking hated each other afterwards, and I was like, no, they're still friends. I'm like, who am I performing for? Like it's already broken. But that's just we're programmed to be like, no, everything is fine, even though shitty.
And part of it is like you're protecting yourself from your own emotions about it, and then
Oh,
you're
because I don't
protecting
want to
other
talk about
people
it,
from
right?
like, right.
Yeah, yeah.
The most frustrating thing is the idea that, I don't know, I literally lost what I was thinking about because I was listening to
It's
you
okay.
so intently. But like it's, oh, so I've been having this conversation because I'm living it and really understanding it. When you go through like a certain level of shit, like you really start to understand that you can't explain it to the people who are outsiders. And then
Yeah, you physically can't.
vice versa, you start to realize that you really truly will never understand someone else's experience because you're not in it with them.
Hmm.
And no, I like being an empath makes you understand the emotions of it, which is almost really more dangerous because I've
Oh, it was
started
dangerous. Yeah.
noticing, I've started notice being extremely empathic that because my family is literally in a crisis right now,
Hmm.
the the emotions that I have for it because I've unpacked them and they're very strong.
Hmm.
Even when somebody else tells me about something that's going on in their life, the second that my empathy like even strokes an emotion that I'm dealing with, like I immediately align everything that they're going through everything that I'm going through, and that's not true. Like that's not how that works.
No, but it's like
And it
the instant reaction though when you're
yeah,
an
and
empath.
it becomes super dangerous. Like my empathy has gone rogue right now,
Yeah, yeah.
but
That's what happened to me. Yeah, yeah,
it this is these are all just examples of the following things.
yeah.
A, therapy is so important.
Yeah, 100%.
B, understanding your emotions and fuck that. Understanding your emotional state is so important. It's like the way that you walk out to your car to drive your like the way that you drive your car on a sunny day versus the way you drive your car in the middle of a snowstorm is different.
Hmm.
The way that you function as a person on a sunny day when all's good in your head versus the way that you function in a shitstorm is different. And if you don't have a good like little weather detector up there telling you what the mental weather is in
Hmm.
here, you're
Hmm.
fucked because then you're going to start acting in ways that you don't even have awareness of, and bigger, scarier thing, B, don't even realize there's something else going on that's making that happen. Right. So
Hmm.
you can't control yourself.
Anything.
And the only thing that you have control over in this whole world is yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. But not none of people have that awareness, unfortunately. And
And
that's why they're not good people.
I 100% agree with the aspects of like self-awareness, emotional intelligence, those are necessary characteristics of making you a good person. And it's extremely difficult to live, thrive, survive in a world where everyone is trained to manipulate somebody who's a good person.
They just want that like.
And it's harder to
Mhm.
consistently stay a good person to yourself when you're in that world because you want to be that giver and don't want to make requests that are focused on you.
Yeah, and I remember when my family was going through shit and we were in college. I didn't tell anyone.
Nope.
I don't think I told you, and it just kind of happened.
Nope.
Yeah. And like shit went to,
And I get
uh, yeah.
the safety of distancing yourself from people. Like I totally get that.
Yeah, isolation is just purely if you're isolating yourself, you're depressed. I don't know if people know that. Like 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 I'm gonna tell you that because that's what I did.
Ding.
And that's what I did because it was just like the easiest thing to do was
Yeah,
like
avoidance is the easiest path. Like the
denial,
most
just like
difficult
anything.
journeys don't get taken
Yeah.
because avoidance is the easiest choice to
Right.
make.
And I say that because then I would want to be that empath where it's like, oh, you're going through something? Let me help you because I don't want to
Dude,
deal with my shit.
but like I also kind of tried to do that and then I realized
Mhm.
like I'm not going to be helpful. Why am I bothering them? Like Maria right now? Like leave Maria alone.
Right, right. Um, but even so, right? Like if you didn't know my situation at that point, but I was like, oh, how are you? And you have a problem, I'm just gonna be like, okay, let's deal with your problem and
Absolutely
let's not
normal. Yeah,
a
that's how I
hundred
am right
percent.
now.
Yeah, like yeah, let me just escape my
Distractions are
issues.
great.
Yeah,
The thing that I've learned
but it's
too
unhealthy people.
is that needs a balance too.
Yeah,
Because
you can't all be just like,
you
let's
can't,
distract me. Let's like, okay,
right,
let's talk about my problem too.
right. You can't constant sun exposure
Yeah,
gives
it's bad.
you sunburn, right? Is bad for you. So constantly dealing with other people's crap versus dealing with your own is not good for you. But constantly dealing with your own crap without having any type of like being in like your normal situation of helping other people or being with other people or
Give and take.
being in literally just being in a relationship, right? Like that's what
Hmm.
being in a relationship with anybody would be like. Without having those balance of two things, like you need to run the gamut between those two situations of getting sun and not getting sun. And then you also need to wear sunscreen, which is the boundaries that you set to protect
Work.
yourself.
Um, also another like a red flag thing, like a indicator that someone's a red flag, is if they finally ask how you are and you spill your shit to them and they're just like not even like cognitively
Nothing.
there. Forget it,
Nothing.
guys. Drop them.
My
I'm gonna tell you that right
my
now. You can drop them.
favorite, my that's how so that would be my advice. I'm going to end this with my little bit of advice.
Yeah, for sure.
If you are somebody who has any type of history of influence of avoidance or carries any type of shame or guilt and has a difficulty trusting people, um, I'm describing myself. But if you relate to any of the things that Maria and I have said today and you find yourself being more isolated, more avoiding of things that you're dealing with that are difficult, find a therapist because
Key.
if it wasn't for
Key.
going to see and seek out a trained professional whose job it was to literally sit there and listen to me and they had no connection to my life at all otherwise or influence, I never would have felt that it was safe at all to talk to anybody about what I was experiencing. That's A.
That's A for sure.
B, once you feel comfortable doing that with a trained professional, it's probably not a good idea to let yourself think that you can just go do that with anybody because it doesn't work
Oh my
that way.
God, that doesn't work. Dude, that doesn't work like
So
that.
you need to slowly start leaving breadcrumbs, like sharing a little bit, little things that you feel comfortable sharing with people who you trust, maybe who you actively trust.
Correct.
And and figure out who the people are that you can rely on, who will acknowledge you as you are, who will care for you and meet you where you are without judgment, without hooded judgments of like saying things that are actually their opinions about how bad things are or what you should do.
Yeah.
Instead of just like supporting you. And then over a long ass time of slowly doing that, I think, when did I start going to therapy? It's taken me at least 5 years, if not more than that, for me to feel comfortable with the fact that I'm just going to share my story and I don't give a shit what anybody has to say.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
I know how much better it is for me when I do that. So that's my suggestion of how you handle that, and be nice to yourself and let it take time. And it's the hardest part about it is that you are going to find some of the people who you thought that you could share anything with and who would always be in support of you, you're going to learn are people that you don't tell things to.
And it then becomes just a superficial, let's hang out, grab, a couple
And then
drinks,
you
then peace
decide
out.
if you want to waste your time with those people or if you
Yeah.
want to really stay and focus on the relationships that you have with the people who do meet you halfway and can actually be supportive. And I can say that it has made my life feel more fulfilled, and I feel more seen and acknowledged and confident in myself because I know that I have that.
Yeah, it just makes it so much easier to live as a person once you
To
know that the
live
people.
as a good person when you're
Right,
surrounded by
yeah.
other good people. So if
Correct.
that's your intention, that's my, I guess,
Advice.
suggestion. Yeah, advice.
Yeah. I think homework is go take an inventory of the people around you and then go
Take out a
go to
pen,
therapy,
write them
guys.
down, and then take all of your notes to your therapist.
Yeah, go to your therapist. If you don't have one, go find one. Because I think everyone should go to therapy.
Oh, man.
Good people. Good people go to
Good
therapy.
people. We know that if you listen to us, you're a good person because you wouldn't want to give a shit about the stuff we talked about if you weren't a good person. So, amen to the good people out there. And just because you're a good person doesn't mean that you're not allowed to take care of yourself. You have to be good to yourself before you can be good to others.
Even if you're Filipino American. Because that whole cop less thing
Absolutely. That's
really fucks with your brains.
just dagger into your chest. All right. Well, thank you for joining us again. We're so happy to be back here with you, and we're always happy to have you with us if you're listening or watching, because we would still be having these conversations, but having you here makes them extra special. So thank you for listening and watching.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Okay, bye.
Like, I feel like that was a perfect place.